Andy, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Very grateful for you and everything you do to provide value to us as a market center and to our agents. I wanted to spend some time with you today. Just give me your perspective after leaving Mega Camp last week. What'd you think?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Thanks for your time. It's a pleasure being in business with you. Thanks for all you're doing in Roswell. I think that it was a little bizarre being in San Antonio for Mega Camp. I've never been in Mega Camp in another city other than Austin. So there was a little bit of a twilight zone of like, something here doesn't feel right. I would say that I've been to bigger mega camps in the past, in terms of agent count. And I still can't think of a mega camp that I've been to where I had as much fun and learned as much as I did as this one. And everywhere I went, like I was running into friends and, I'd see people multiple times throughout the, few days that we were together. So I liked the fact that it felt a little bit homier, like it felt a little bit more campy, like mega campy. We used to, bigger and better. That was kind of our mantra for such a long time. But I actually liked a little bit of more of an intimate environment. I thought that other people said the same thing. The energy was really, really good. Overall feeling, obviously AI kind of dominated the conversation. And it was not supposed to be that way, apparently. Like the whole agenda kind of changed as Gary and the team decided they wanted to dive deeper into AI. And I'm glad they did because, within our group, we've been spending a lot of time with that, whether that's the GMs or Sam or all of us, as leaders in the organization. We want to do as much as we can and be as AI focused as we possibly can be. So there was some practical stuff I'm sure we'll talk about that I liked. And I think the Stone Point Capital, like I think we finally got a face with the name with that between Chuck and Chris. I think there's some great ahas that we had through that. I think our operating partner leadership council is really starting to come together as we understand what it takes to serve the agent in this next generation. How do we need to be thinking about the business of the future? And then just being the largest real estate company in the world, like, we can't sit on our laurels. We've got to constantly be evolving. So we're really excited about what that leadership council is doing inside of the company. And the last thing, energy wise, I just think there's a ton of opportunity out there. In fact, I've found myself getting pulled into sidebar meetings in the hallways and, crammed into, little places in the corner where we could sit down and talk, whether that's with agents or leaders within our company. I see a ton of opportunity right now. I think that there is probably a little bit of fear because we haven't experienced a slowdown in numbers for this many years in quite some time. It just feels different. But the reality is this is normal. Like this is not an abnormal thing for us to go through. But I do feel like we're well positioned as a company. I think there's some exciting things coming. I think all of our leaders and all of our agent leaders are all destined to take advantage of this if we'll just be the best version that we know to be.
Yeah, you brought up AI. It's always interesting to me when someone positions themselves as an AI expert because it's like, I don't know about you, Andy, but I constantly feel behind, right?
Yes.
When it comes to, a lot of areas of my life, but especially AI, because it's constantly changing and evolving and its capabilities, they just keep getting greater and greater. And there's so much of it still to me that feels pie in the sky. What were some practical things that you took away from what you learned in San Antonio?
Yeah, I loved the 20-60-20 rule, which was basically like, preparing for what is the information that you're going to give AI, like, and this is prompting, right? This is how do we position AI to best help us? And then letting AI do that 60% of the work. And then the 20% on the back end is the polishing. I think we all have these experiences of like, we'll use AI and it'll give us a version and then we'll tinker with it a little bit, make it more sarcastic, make it for a ninth grade level, whatever. And then even sometimes take that answer and put it into another AI tool to give us a different perspective. So we can get an endless amount of outcome, realizing though that nothing's going to be perfect until we put our brain on it and polish it ourselves with that last 20% of the exercise. Yeah,
That's
I
really
mean,
helpful.
I think we've got to start our conversations, or at least the way we think about things, with what, if anything, can AI take off of our plate, and the answer might be, oh, it actually can't do this. But I don't know that in every situation yet we're saying, well, let's turn to AI first. All right, let's see what that would do first. To me, it's like I'm putting together agendas for meetings and all these kind of things, producing content and all this stuff, and I'm like going through my notebooks and all my stuff, and when in reality, like there's probably a better way for me to do that. It's just not top of mind for me yet. I'm getting there. But I think we've got to lead the discussion inside of our brokerages around, like, let's let AI take a pass at it, or let's ask the question, would they be best to take the first swing at this before we actually invest more of our time?
It's interesting. One of the things I heard Liz Bohannon, who spoke at the CEO Summit, say I'm sorry, it was Julie Holmes. Julie
Yeah.
Holmes said this: think of AI not so much as your assistant, but more as an intern.
Yeah.
Whereas, like an assistant, you tell it what to do, and it goes and does it and brings it back, and it's done. Whereas an intern needs a little bit more guidance, and then the work that you get back needs that to what you mentioned, like the last 20% of like finishing touches, right? To that human component. That was a good shift for me to think of it as an intern rather than as an assistant.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of this is I was preparing for mastering the market, or not mastering the market at the moment, state of the market within all of the markets, right? We just did this for the quarterly stats presentation. In Savannah, I was asking AI, what are the developments that are going on in the greater Savannah area that have a future impact upon the real estate industry? And what I noticed, Nate, was that I got like 12 things. And I asked, okay, what are the 5 most impactful? And you start the narrowing process. And then the things that were the most impactful, it goes on to tell you where do you cite that information from. Interestingly enough, of the 5 things in Savannah, there were 3 things that were cited by the Heather Murphy Group. Now, the Heather Murphy Group, for those who don't know, is like the top team within Savannah, right? And so I knew John Morgan had been working with Heather this summer on their team as an intern. And I said, this is really cool. Like, I'm seeing Heather Murphy Group is lining up on all these results within AI. And John Morgan's like, well, what do you think we've been working on? Like, this is like, we're doing all this behind the scenes. And I had no idea what he was doing, right? Like, a great example of how are we being intentional about this? Going and hiring an intern to train AI to make sure that your company is being promoted.
Brilliant.
We missed that, right? Like now we're all going to catch up to speed with that now.
Man, that's so good. How do you get AI to recommend you, right?
Yeah.
Or cite you as the resident expert?
That's right.
That's super cool. Okay, let's shift gears just for a minute. And you mentioned Stone Point Capital, and we got to hear from Chuck Davis. He sat down and had a conversation with Gary and gave a talk. What did you take away from Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think when this announcement came through, right, we were all like, we were very hopeful. I mean, we obviously see the possibilities with private equity being an investor in our business, and that excites us. But we really didn't have a face. Like Stone Point Capital feels like a cold entity, right? We didn't have that warmth of who's actually running, who's making the decisions for the company. So I thought it was brilliant to bring in. We've seen Chris for a while. Chris Zarnicki, incredibly talented CEO. Perhaps not the guy that's going to be boisterous or the life of the party by any stretch. he's going to be amazing at running the business, right? He's actually more focused on the franchise side, like with the OPs, than anybody else, which that feels really great if you're an OP or you're, considering getting into the franchise world. But I thought Chuck was a great kind of regular guy that has had some extraordinary experiences in his life and has had some great mentors. And my aha from that whole conversation with Chuck is that Gary's finally found somebody that he can learn something from, somebody that perhaps has accomplished more than he has in his life. And let's face it, y'all, like there's not a lot of people in the real estate space that have experienced the success of Gary Keller.
Yeah.
And we all just assume he's the smartest guy in the room. Well, I think Chuck is, kind of gives Gary a run for the money. And I think that's a good thing. Like you need more of those big thinking people, in the organization. So I was really encouraged by that. I did get a chance to meet Chuck and shake his hand. And I just found him to be a likable, personable person. So I like what I see there. I think they're still figuring things out. Like I still think they're in the honeymoon phase of asking the right questions. And by the way, they've asked a ton of questions. I've spent probably 3 or 4 meetings with Chris Zarnicki, the CEO. And, I'm really impressed with the questions that they're asking us and the way that they are wanting to help us be better owner operators of Keller Williams. I definitely feel it feels different, right? There is more of a yes, how attitude than I've ever seen at Keller Williams now.
That's great. Yeah, and we introduced a new chief marketing officer, right?
Yeah.
While we were there, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
Those needs are only growing, both on the agent front and the market center front. It's so it was good to see Sandra get announced. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, she had the big glasses and the big hair. Like she fit the part. I loved her. Thought she was great. 100%. Great energy.
You also talked about this kind of market we're in, and just a company like KW, and how maybe you would feel like it could be less opportunity, but you just kind of feel like there's more. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what do they say? Rough seas make great captains. In markets like this where it feels different, it's an easy place to go panic. It's an easy place to kind of throw your hands up. And I think you're seeing the agents and the leaders right now that will be the next wave of leaders in our company. All of us that experienced 08 to 11 and struggled through that, on the other side of that came the reward. It didn't feel like it in the moment, right? It felt very hard. Like, why do we do this? Why did I quit my job and get into real estate in 2008? But looking back on it, right, those were the best lessons. And there are plenty of people that flunked out of school during those times that just couldn't hack it. And I think, you probably haven't seen as many people flunk out yet, but another year of kind of the same, you're going to see more casualties. And, I think it's really easy for us to go to the dark place with that. The reality is there's plenty of business for everybody. I feel like, especially in a company like Keller Williams, there's opportunities everywhere. I do think you've got producers who are perhaps tired, producers that have had success in other markets. And for whatever reason, like they know what it takes and they just don't want to do it. And I think that presents an opportunity for the go-getter out there that says, I want to go partner with somebody and, I want to have instant business but I don't want to start from scratch. I think there's a huge opportunity for agents to find partners in this. On the franchise side, like I think you're starting to see some consolidation occur. Some of it is a little bit of a war of attrition. Some of it is just the reality of the fact that, we've got to band together more these days We've got to control costs better. We've got to deliver value in more efficient ways than we have in the past. Coming back from family reunion, or from mega camp rather, and having people grab you and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or is this crazy enough for you? Or I'm really struggling with this. Like, what would you do here? Like, I saw a lot of people working through a lot of problems that would have probably brought a lot of people down. And I looked at it and said, oh my gosh, like there's enough opportunity here for a decade's worth of work. It's just a matter of, do you want to sign up,
Yeah.
And all of us have this opportunity. If we go and we just rock the role that we're in right now, our future is bright. Our future is, already paved for us, because we will have accomplished something in let's call it a down market, right?
Yeah.
I don't think any market is necessarily bad or good, but from a sales standpoint, it's down. So your ability to go and make chicken salad right now in a challenging environment is going to pay off for you in opportunities down the road.
That's so good. Andy, what else do you want to share before we wrap up here?
I think from my chair, I think we talked a little bit about that OP Leadership Council, and I think what's happening right now is we've kind of gotten away from what made us so strong as Keller Williams. Culturally, there is a huge push internally now to kind of get us back to the way we felt about our company in the past. I think we've got a lot of operators and leaders in our company that are starting to raise that flag. We haven't had a flag to raise in quite some time. We became number one, and that was the flag we waved for a while, but we haven't had another flag. And so Mo Anderson really challenged us with that. I think our OP Leadership Council is now assembled in work groups, and we're working on things like communication. How do we communicate better with agents and interpersonally within the company? Things like training, like how are we delivering training and how do we control that at a high level? We still provide some creativity for market centers to still, be able to choose their own destination on some of their programming, but on the real meat and potatoes stuff, we've got to nail that as a company. And so we're figuring out from a Keller Williams global standpoint, like what does Keller Williams need to still control so that we deliver the best experience, the best training for the agent. I'm excited about that. I think that's a big, big deal. We've got a lot of talented people in this company, and we kind of got to let them eat, Nate. You got to let them eat. And I enjoy sitting at some of those tables and watching some of those people, come up with their crazy ideas and flesh them out together. So that's what I'm excited about.
I love that. That's great. Well, Andy, thank you for your perspective and for everything you do for us. I'll check in with you again probably later this year and continually. We just appreciate you. We'll see you soon, my man.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.